Now for this exercise, we are going to be generating some drawing views. If I go to the Layouts tab again, like the previous exercise, you can now see that there is a frame around here and a title field. This is a block that has been created and inserted. You can create these of your own as well. But this is where we will be then placing the drawing views, as opposed to the last exercise where all the views were already placed. So to place and generate drawing views, you can go to the Annotate tab, and here you will find the Base Views command. You can also activate the View Base command. When activating the command, you can see that you can either select individual objects, such as this handle here or the main body of the assembly. You can also select the entire model, which is what we will do now. Once going through with that selection, you can then choose what layout you want to place it in. Normally, it automatically suggests the first layout in your layout tabs. You can also type in the name of any other layout to select this. But I will just select layout 1 now. And it will take you to the paper space. Here you can see my cursor is holding onto a preview of a drawing view. This is just a temporarily generated set of lines, basically a wireframe model that I can then see where I want to place. In the command line dialog, you can then also change some settings, such as the scale of your model. You can enable or disable hidden lines and tangent lines. You can also change the orientation and so on. These settings you can also change after you have inserted the views as well. So I will select where I want to place this view now. I want to place it somewhere up here so I can make room for the rest of the views I want to create. So I will just click, and now it has placed this preview still. If I drag my cursor around, you can see that it creates some projections for me. I can get a left projection to the sides or to the left and right. I can see it from the top if I drag it down to the bottom. Now, this is typically the European standard way of projecting. You can also change projection types. You could see that in the command line dialog earlier. So I want to place a projection view to the left, and I want to place one to the right. I just drag the cursor where I want it to be, and I can click to place it. I also want to place one underneath, so I will click to accept that. I also want to place an isometric view. You can see that the isometric view is angled a certain way here, depending on how the positioning of the base view is. And if I move it over here, it will be angled from a different direction. This is because of the alignment of the drawing views. If you see on the bottom of the screen above the command line, there is a control toggle option. Currently, it is set to maintain alignment between drawing views. If I click Control to toggle to the next option, it will break the alignment. What this does is if I drag my cursor over here and I want to keep this specific projection, but I want to place it somewhere else on the drawing, then I can break the alignment and this projected view will remain no matter where I place it according to the base view. But for now, I just want to keep it down here, so I will click to select it here. To generate the views, I can click Enter to exit out of the command. And it will be building the views and the geometries of the drawing views. And here you can see I have this base view, 3 normal projected views, and 1 projected isometric view. Like I said earlier, you could alter different settings with them before placing or while placing. You can also select the drawing view, and then you can change settings in the properties panel after placement. So for step 4 of this exercise, for example, it is telling me to try and enable tangent lines and hidden lines. So for the tangent lines, you can see that some lines are missing from the geometry. It's not always easy to see the different curvatures and so on of the model. This hand wheel or this grip here looks kind of flat in some areas. It doesn't show a lot of depth. So I can try to turn on and enable tangent lines. Then you can see the lines signifying the end and beginning of fillets will appear. And it is a bit easier maybe to see exactly the shape of the different parts and the different connections between parts. I can also try to turn on hidden lines, although as you can see here, there's a bit too many lines for my liking. It becomes a bit too chaotic and too many overlapping lines. So I will disable it again. I can try to enable it for a view that makes a bit more sense, perhaps, to keep it on. For example, this view here. Then you can see it is a bit more easy to see the different parts and there's not too many overlapping lines. So then for this one, I can keep it. Something that is not in the guide, but something that might be interesting for you to see is that you can also change the geometry from 2D to 3D. If you select the isometric drawing view, go to the properties panel, here you can see the geometry option. I can change this to 3D, and there you can see you can more easily visualize the colors, or it can add a bit more of a realistic look to it, which might help on a production drawing, for example. But I will keep it as 2D for now. So with the hidden lines, I'm able to see some of the internals of the part. It's not completely clear to me exactly how things are put together, so we can also attach some section lines, as is shown in step 5. In the top left, you can see the section view tool. With the drop-down menu here, you can see you have some different options. For the first view, I will just create a full section view. When it is active, you have to select what drawing view you want to create a section view from. So that means you just have to click within the boundary or the outer boundary of this drawing viewport. So I will just click inside of it to make a section view from this view. Then I can start my section view line. Ideally, I want to draw a line through the middle of this part, through the exact center. Now, this axle should be centered in the part. I'm going to assume it is, so I can draw a section line along this shaft. I can then use my snapping to hover over the midpoint of this axle and drag my cursor upwards while still being temporarily tracked onto this snapping point. And I can then start my line up here. Click it to start. The reason I go a little bit away from the model before I start the line is because you can see there is an arrow and an indication lettering. And it's would be a bit too messy if those overlap with the model itself. So then it's best to keep it a little bit away from the model itself. Now I want to place it on the bottom here. You can see it kind of snapping onto a lot of different parts here. And maybe I accidentally track the wrong part down here, since there are different snapping options. To avoid this, I can hold my shift key, and you can see it stays on this certain axis no matter where I move my cursor next to it. Unless I move it way too far away, then it will stick to another axis. But this is an easy way to keep it going straight vertically down. Then I will just click to place the second position and hit enter to be done. Or I might have pressed done a bit too quickly, actually. So I'm going to do that again real quick. Before pressing done, it will generate the actual section view, as you can see here. If I drag it to the left, you can see the arrows are pointing to the left, and I will see the left part of the sectioned view. If I drag it to the right, the arrows will change direction, and I will see the other half of the part. So, like I mentioned earlier, breaking alignment can come in handy here. If I wanted this projection to the left, but I don't have anywhere, if I don't have any room to place it, then I could break alignment and then still place it somewhere else. But for now, it works to just place it here. And as you can see, the section line remains on the original view, and I get the correct indication that this is the AA section view here with the scale attached as well. And I can clearly see the hatches, different hatches for different components to show the difference between them. Also the silhouettes of the different parts to distinguish them. And it is a lot clearer of a view rather than this view with the hidden lines. If you don't want a full section view, you can also use a half section view in the same place as the original full section view was created from. I will use the other option called half section view. I will make it from this part this time. Again, I have to select the drawing view, and then I can snap onto the center of this part and start drawing my line. Now, I only want to make the section line go into the middle of this, and then I can draw out a line here. So by drawing this second line away like this means that I will be cutting away this quarter of the part. If I drew it this way, I would be cutting away this quarter of the part. So I will click to accept that. And then if I drag it down, it will project only a quarter of the part for me. While if I drag it up, it will project the other 3/4 of my part. So like earlier, I want to keep this projected view. But now I don't have anywhere to place it here. This placement above it has already been taken up. So then I can click Shift or press Shift on my keyboard to break the alignment. And then I can place this specific projection wherever I wish. Either below it here or next to it, I will place it below. And again, I get the indication of what section it is from and the scale. I want to have another section view. I want to see the specific Yeah, the specific shape and size of this flange here, for example, if I were to need any tools during the installation of it, then I can easily measure the sizing of this, and I want a specific view for this. So then I can go ahead and create another full section view, select the drawing view. Now I just want to capture the silhouette of this face here, basically. So I will just start my section line a little bit in past the face of it. Specifically, it doesn't matter as long as it doesn't touch much else or go past this shape, just like a few millimeters past. I will start my line, draw it downwards the same way as before. And I will move it to the side. Now, like I mentioned, all I'm interested in is this specific shape. I'm not interested in the rest of this, as this is covered in the other drawing views. So I can use the command line option called depth. I will press it. I can choose the depth mode. I will choose a custom value, and I will give the distance of 1 millimeter. And if I accept and exit out of it now, it will leave me with only a 1 millimeter slab past my section line. So the way it works, it is that the face we see here is the line, the section line, and all of the material it keeps is only that 1 millimeter extra that I typed in. So it keeps the section line and then a 1 millimeter slab past that section line, and everything past that it disregards in that view. So everything past here, for example, is disregarded as it's not interesting in this specific view. Now, if we're going to assemble this part, it's interesting to see maybe more specifically the sizing of these things and how they fit together, maybe put on some tolerances or something. We can do this here, but it might get a little bit cramped with all the measurements. So then a detail view would come in handy. This is then step 8 in the handout. And then I can activate in the top left, right next to the section button, I can find the rectangular detail view, which I will activate. Again, similarly to the section views, I have to select the drawing view I want to create it from. So I will click it to accept it. I will then press to start the center of my drawing or detail view. I want the center here, and then I can draw a rectangle out from here. I can then place this detail view as such. However, I'm only interested in maybe this part of the assembly, and it's taking up a bit more space than needed. So I can then go back and resize the detail view. If I select it, I can use these grip points and click them and just move them into position, which will make the detail view a bit more tidy and perhaps a bit easier to put dimensions onto. Also, I can select the indication number or lettering, and I can use the grip points to also move this out of the way and make it a bit more visible. And I can also place circular detail views from the same place. Same way as before, I can click to select the drawing view and then click to start the center. I want a detail view from here, so I can do it like this and then place it here. And then I can also select this one again and drag the indicator out. so it's more easily spotted. And also I'm a bit interested in this specific fitting, so I will place a circular detail view here as well. However, it might maybe still be a bit small for putting a dimension onto here or just to show exactly how they fit. So I can select the viewport. I can then go to the properties panel. And on the bottom, I can see this setting for the standard scale. I'm going to extend it a bit. I can grip onto it there. Then I can then select from different standard scales. I can also set a custom scale if I wish, but I think the standard scales will be just fine. I want it to be a bit bigger than 1:1, so 1:2 will not work. I will scroll down and I can find 2:1. Just hovering over it, it will be previewed. So I think this is good. Looks like it fits well, so I will select it. And the detail view updates. Again, when it changes in scale, the boundary of the viewport does not change. So I can then also change and make this a bit larger again to make it a bit easier to see. Now for this next step, if you are not very happy with the different styles of these detail views or section views, you can also change that. Also, if you want to satisfy a specific standard, you can go to the section style option in the ribbon under the annotate tab. And here you can then create a new style that you can name, for example, custom. And you can change some different colors, for example, the indicator to blue or identifier to blue. You can change the text style. Here you can feel free to play around with some of the different settings. I'm just changing some random colors. So here you can also see a preview window of this, where I change the hatch color to red and the identifier to blue. You can hide the plain lines, then it will only show the minimally needed lines for the section view and so on. You can also through here access the detail styles. You can also find them right under section style on the ribbon, but you can access it through here as well. Here again, you can also create a new style, call it custom again, and you can change some colors. For example, green. It's getting very colorful, but at least it will be easy to spot. You can also change the line style. Yeah, we can load in different line styles and such as well, create or change the thickness as well, and so on. So here you can play around with these different settings. If you have already placed these views and you want to change to your newly created style, you can then select the view, and in the properties panel, you should find in the bottom detail view style. And here you can change it to your custom configuration. So now you can see that this one has turned into a beautiful green color. Here I can change this to my section style. And so on. The same is true also in this window. You can find different dimension styles if you want to change the style of your dimensions to satisfy any standards here. Now, next up, we can then add some necessary dimensions. You can also play around with the different dimension types as you wish. For example, this is a fairly standard part, so you don't necessarily need a lot of different dimension types. Maybe just the largest sizes, so you know the specific size of the part. You could also apply some different fitting sizes. Now this next part is not in the handout, but if you select a measurement and scroll all the way down, you can see tolerances here. So you can then choose to display a tolerance. So for example, here, you maybe want to have a tolerance of plus minus 0.5 or so, minus 0.5 plus 0.1, for example. And so you can change these settings down here. Lastly, I want to create a bill of materials for this to identify the different parts. I can do this in the ribbon by, in the annotate tab, I can find the bill of materials command or use the command bmbom. In the command line dialog, you can see I can change the configuration of it. I can choose top level, bottom level. I will just use the default now, but I will choose the configuration option. Here I can add some different columns with different values. I would like to see the materials of these parts, so I will click on that. I would also like the mass, so I will select that. And then you can see it added these new columns. To place it, I click where I want to place it. And there I have my bill of materials. Now, also in BricsCAD, you have an easier way of modifying these things. You can go to the panel BOM manager. As you can see here, I have a similar BOM table to the one in the drawing. This is typically where you modify your bill of materials and you can add even more columns. There are some categories for columns, such as the components, material, mass, mechanical components. You can also see here all the different available columns for this, material density and so on, volume, for example, and you can add many more. For example, let's say I want to summarize all the different quantity of parts. So I want to see exactly how many parts there are. I can then select the quantity column, right click it, select the footer value or sub option, and then click sum. You will see that it calculated the total sum of parts and created a new total row at the bottom. In the drawing view window, you can also see that it automatically updated immediately to reflect any changes I make in the BOM manager. I can also go ahead and do the same with the mass, for example. So I get the total weight. That can be quite useful. So there you can see I got the total weight, which is 860 grams. And it is also shown here in the drawing view. To move around anything in the drawing space, you can then click and hold on it to get the manipulator. Then you can move the drawing views. You can also use the grips here, as you can see, the green grips. And you can also use the move commands. Now also, if you want to have another name for the total row, you can go ahead and select it and go down to the bottom of the BOM manager. Here you can see the footer title, and there you can change it to, for example, sum or anything you wish, and it will also update. Now, this is only scratching the surface of what the BOM manager is capable of, but it will give you a good introduction